All right, let's dive into something pretty fascinating today. We're looking at a claim where ancient wisdom seems to bump right into modern science. The source material we're breaking down here suggests that the Gayatri Mantra, a spiritual tool that's thousands of years old, could actually work as a real, scientific shield for our body's own immune cells. So, let's see how that's even possible.
So that's the big question, right? Can something that feels so simple, like a chanted verse, actually act as a genuine biological shield, against all the modern viruses and diseases we face today? It's a really bold idea. So let's dig into the evidence that's presented in the source material.
Okay, first things first, let's get on the same page about immunity itself. Think of it like our body's own invisible army, a complex biological shield that's on duty 24/7, protecting us from disease. The real question isn't if we have this army, but how we might be able to make it stronger, from the inside out.
To even begin to understand how something from the outside could influence this army, we first need to get a sense of the battlefield itself. And that's the vast, incredibly complex world of our cellular defense systems.
I mean, the scale here is just mind-boggling. Your body is this living, breathing organization made of trillions of cells. And every single moment, this internal nation is defending its borders against threats like bacteria and viruses. The first responders in this constant war? Those are your white blood cells. They are the absolute frontline soldiers of your immune system. Okay, so how do you even begin to fortify this internal army? Well, this is where the core of the claim lies. The idea that sound itself, a physical vibration, can interact with and actually strengthen our biology. We're moving from just the concept of an army to the actual mechanics of how you might reinforce it.
The process that's described is basically a kind of biological domino effect, what we're calling a vibrational cascade. It all starts when chanting produces some very specific sound frequencies. Now, these vibrations aren't just something you hear, they physically resonate inside the body, especially in the chest and the skull. This resonance is then said to directly stimulate a super important organ, the thymus gland, which in turn leads to a balancing of communication between your cells.
And that brings us to the thymus gland. You can think of it as the training academy or the boot camp of your immune system. This is a place where your key defensive cells, your special forces if you will, they mature and learn how to spot the bad guys. So according to this theory, stimulating this gland is like giving your entire military training program a major upgrade.
And the theory gets even more specific. The claim is that the 24 distinct syllables of the Gayatri Mantra create this incredibly precise vibrational pattern. And this pattern is believed to balance the secretion of something called cytokines. Just think of cytokines as the messengers for your immune system. They're the ones telling your cells when to attack and, just as importantly, when to stand down. Balanced communication means a much more efficient and a much more effective army.
But hold on, the theory doesn't just stop with physical vibrations. The source material also gets into the synergy of more subtle forces. We're moving now from the mechanics of sound to the interplay between energy, sunlight, and our internal defenses.
So, according to the source, the effect isn't just physical. It claims the mantra energizes what's called the pranamaya kosha, which is described as the body's subtle energy field. And get this, when chanting is done in sunlight, a process they call photobiomodulation is supposed to happen, where light energy and sound energy combine. The claimed result? A measurable increase in the activity of lymphocytes, which are a really critical type of white blood cell.
And there's also a direct chemical consequence here. We know for a fact that the stress hormone cortisol actively suppresses our immunity. Well, according to the source, chanting counters this by lowering stress and boosting wellness hormones like endorphins. So you're creating a direct chemical shift in your body, away from a state that destroys your defenses and towards one that actively builds them up.
So, what does this all add up to? Let's pull all these threads together. We've talked about physical vibrations, better cellular communication, and this synergy with sunlight. Now we can see how these mechanisms are synthesized into one powerful, overarching concept.
And this brings us to the core metaphor from the research, the idea of a spiritual antibiotic. The claim here is that unlike a chemical antibiotic, this purifies our entire system, but without any of the negative side effects. It's about strengthening our own ability to fight off disease from the inside out.
Ultimately, this all ties into a bigger philosophy, one called Vichar Kranti, which basically translates to a revolution of thought. The whole idea is to move towards a state of self-reliant health, empowering ourselves with this ancient wisdom so we can take proactive control of our well-being, instead of just, relying on external cures after we already get sick.
And that leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If the claims are true, that sound and sunlight can affect our biology in such a profound way, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other ancient knowledge could be out there, just waiting to unlock our body's hidden potential? It's a fascinating question to chew on. Thanks for joining me.